So welcome everyone. This is the first of our series of the LaunchX alumni interview series. So I'm excited here to have Sruthi, one of our alumni who has been continuing her startup from LaunchX, Spade. And so, the intent of this alumni series is to basically catch up with some of our alumni, because I know that I love being able to catch up with alum, but then to be able to just share some of their stories, both as young entrepreneurs, as well as of their startups. And for you all other young entrepreneurs to be able to learn a little bit more about their stories, hopefully be inspired along your entrepreneurial journeys as well. So with that, I guess I'd love to have you, Sruthi, share a little bit how you got started on your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, so I started off when I was in elementary school. My uncle and aunt were both entrepreneurs, and so watching them sort of grow their company and the different things that they did. So for example, trade shows, or like they fly out and start this like new location for their business. I just thought it was so interesting and cool the way that they started something new and were able to identify a gap in the market. And later on in middle school, in 7th grade, I joined FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America, and that sort of brought the seeds of entrepreneurship and business to me, and I was able to develop some skills like public speaking and graphic design and all those basic skills. And then once I came to LaunchX, that was a pivotal moment in terms of coming to like a realization that I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship further, because I had all these different seeds of interest in business and different areas of public speaking or marketing or sales, which I found really interesting, but I never put it all together. And LaunchX was sort of that culminating event for me to sort of find this realization that entrepreneurship was what I wanted to pursue fully.
Awesome. So you had some of the like public speaking and FBLA and marketing. And I know at LaunchX we occasionally talk about like entrepreneurial types. So is there an entrepreneurial type that you identify a little bit more with?
Yeah, so I identified by the sales and marketing type, and that's what I worked under at LaunchX and Spade. But I've definitely moved into different areas of business as well later on.
Okay, got it. Yeah, and so I guess your company, as we talked about it at LaunchX, is Spade. So tell us a little bit about your startup.
So at LaunchX, I started a water filtration company aimed towards the Indian water crisis, and specifically the water delivery issues that came along with it. And so in India, they use water trucks to deliver water that's not really filtered, and like it's not very safe for the people, especially in rural villages, to access that water and obviously drink it as well. And so me and my team, we came up with an innovative water filter that sort of worked around that Indian water truck and the way that the water is dispensed, so that we're able to efficiently provide the water to the villagers or whoever is gaining that water at the village, and also providing them with clean water as well. So both the efficiency and the cleanliness of the water was something that we wanted to focus on.
Got it. And how did your team arrive at that as your startup?
So we went through a lot of different iterations, and at LaunchX, we were able to connect with our mock board, which was very, very influential in terms of coming to a pinpoint need within the market. And it was very helpful in terms of developing this idea, because we had a bunch of different ideas in terms of our passions and what we first identified by, in terms of like when we had our discussions and all that stuff. And so once we came to a consensus in this project, we were able to move further with the different team members and all the different who were part of the LaunchX community as well.
Awesome. And so tell me about the progress that y'all have made on the startup, both like I guess during LaunchX, but then especially since.
So during LaunchX, we were able to arrive at stage 3 of the entrepreneurship process. So for those of you that don't know, that's around where you sort of build a prototype and are able to wrap up that marketing and sort of brand and design the company. And so we were able to develop all that branding, and we came up with the company Spade and the idea. And we also created a prototype to sort of user test what was going on with our product. And then from LaunchX, once we came out of demo day, I reached out to a professor at MIT. His name is Professor Karnick, and he was working on a water filtration project at the same time, but he was more focused on the science behind water filtration and xylem wood water filters. And so I sort of partnered with him and reached out, and we saw that there was like synergy between my business ambitions and pursuing this further as a company and his scientific project. And he also has a PhD student that was working with him. So I mainly work with her. Her name is Kritika, and she was able to sort of provide more insights into sort of the scientific process behind their water filter. And then putting those two together, we were able to gain manufacturers abroad and sort of like the municipal governments of India to sort of distribute this in different manners.
Oh, that's awesome. And so you're starting to set up manufacturing and everything as well?
Yeah, so we've done a little bit of initial talking about the size of manufacturing. So we're looking at around 50,000 filters.
Oh, awesome. And how has the startup changed since you started?
So we definitely had a different business model when we started off with the Indian water trucks and going down the route of water delivery issues, but now we focused on emergency water filters that are used like during floods and hurricanes or monsoons or any sort of area where there's a lot of rainfall. And now instead of focusing on the delivery, we're on sort of harnessing that like extra water that's gone to waste through these like floods and different disasters, and sort of harnessing that and being able to use it for like clean water purposes.
And like when did you decide that you needed to shift to that other market? Like what kind of influenced that shift?
So once I saw what this Professor Karnick was working on, I saw that his technology behind his water filters would be a lot more beneficial to identifying the gap in the market that we were looking at, because we knew that we wanted to focus on the Indian water crisis, but we were still like pivoting around in terms of like where to take it in. And so we found that his technology was very, very useful and identified a different area between the Indian water crisis to sort of pinpoint that need in the market.
Got it. Yeah, and it is like so common for startups to kind of like shift the business model in some way. And in fact, like I know sometimes we refer to at LaunchX that is kind of the definition of a startup in a lot of ways, is that, you know, a startup is still searching for their business model, right? Like, you know, yeah. Like they're still like refining what different areas of like certain different things about their business model. Like that is kind of fundamentally what a startup is, right? So have there been mistakes that you feel like you've made with the startup that you wish you could have avoided along the way?
I think looking back, the product differentiation was extremely important. And while we identified sort of a broad problem, we weren't able to specify it down. And that's why we had to do this like change in business model, because we weren't able to find a specific need that was validated by the market. Because the water delivery issue, that was something that like people like were sort of immune to sort of like the diseases that were in the water at the time. And so it wasn't quite a need that that was necessary to solve within the market, because people were already able to use most of that water for like cleaning purposes, and it wasn't as much for drinking. And so that's where we had to sort of shift this business model towards emergency disaster relief. And that was it. And that was much more effective in terms of identifying a specific need and differentiating our product.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's common though that like, you know, that you do need to like make those kinds of adjustments. I mean, I guess would you consider that like, I don't know that I guess I think you're giving yourself a hard time though by calling that a mistake though, right? I mean, like that's more just like learning along the way, right? So yeah, I guess are there, yeah, so I consider that certainly like part of the learning process. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, like throughout all of the startup, I mean, there's certainly a lot of hard work that goes into it. I mean, how much time do you end up spending on the startup amongst all the other stuff that you work on?
So I'd say about a couple hours per week. And so so my team and I sort of decided that we weren't going to pursue further past LaunchX, like my initial team, but I sort of changed around the team with Ujay, who is another alumni from LaunchX. And so we've sort of partnered together and put our two companies together, and we've been working on both of them simultaneously. So I've been working on hers and she's been working on mine. We've sort of collaborated in terms of putting our resources together. And now the team has sort of changed with like the professor and PhD student, Ujay, and myself. So I think that's something that's changed a little bit.
Yeah, and very common for that to happen with with LaunchX teams, to have that kind of bit of mixing and matching. And I mean, in working in trying to like continually make time for the startup, and like, I guess what motivates you when it comes to both the startup and entrepreneurship more generally?
I definitely enjoy working within a community. So I'd say having peers around myself to work on, whether it be obviously startups or even like SAT, ACT preparations or whatever it might be, having people around me who are equally as motivated and provide different insights and different perspectives allow me to sort of stay motivated throughout the process, no matter how difficult it is.
Yeah, I know we were talking about just before this, the amazing LaunchX community. So that's for sure a great, amazing motivation. And where do you see your entrepreneurial journey taking you going forward, both with Spade as well as, you know, entrepreneurship in general?
So in terms of Spade, I hope to expand. Obviously, we're in the manufacturing process, and we're working on a research report sort of to get that published within MIT journals as well, sometime hopefully by the end of this year or early next year, about the distribution processes of like how to get this filter out to the Indian people in general. And so that's something that we're working on in terms of like future developments within the company. And hopefully that can actually close the loop in terms of making the impact and being able to solve this problem within the Indian community itself. And I think overall, I hope to pursue entrepreneurship fully as a career, and whether it be Spade or another company that I hope to start, I think that entrepreneurship is something that I have my mindset on. Hopefully in college, I'm able to pursue a concentration within business and do like an entrepreneurship concentration, so I'm able to further my entrepreneurial studies.
And with Spade, are there certain milestones that you want to be hitting in the near term here? Are there certain things we should be looking out for in the near term?
Definitely. So I'd say partnering with a couple municipal governments within India. We're looking at Chennai, which is like in southern India, and so that's where the Indian water crisis is mainly hitting hard. And so hopefully if we're able to partner with a couple like governments there and then expand towards like northern India and like Asia in general, hopefully we'll be able to cover a lot of bases.
And what are some of the biggest potential challenges that might get in your way of being able to create those relationships and such to do that?
I think working on different sides of the country is obviously going to be very difficult. Sometimes things can be lost in translation. And of course, because I don't speak the language there and they don't, they might speak a little bit of English, but of course, it can be lost in translation. I think that will be definitely a challenge. But the professor that I'm working with, he's very familiar with that market and has already been in the talks with them, so that that bridge can slowly be crossed.
Yeah, and that's great that you have it sounds like good relationships already to be able to start getting it in there. That's great. That's great. Awesome. And I mean, how has LaunchX helped you on this entrepreneurial journey?
I think LaunchX has definitely given the seeds starting this company, whether it be just developing the skills for entrepreneurship. I think the different stages that LaunchX provided in terms of like coming up with an idea, validating that need within the market, and moving forward and user testing and such. I think that process is something that most entrepreneurs and young aspirants don't really know about. And so coming up with like a scientific process to entrepreneurship is so impactful towards my entrepreneurship journey. And of course, that's where my entrepreneurship community has always been, and it will always be there, of course.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I know. I love this community. It's it's such a powerful thing for sure. And let's see here. So what would be the advice that you would give for other aspiring young entrepreneurs that might be starting their entrepreneurial journey?
I would say don't be afraid to at first, because I think we've definitely come across many different ideas that weren't able to gain traction. And throughout LaunchX, our company sort of developed at the later stage of, or like within the last couple of weeks, and we spent a lot of time going through different ideas and revisiting like old ideas and refining our market and sort of the need that we wanted to solve. So I think in general, don't be afraid to try and put yourself out there, because I think that's something that's really important in terms of just getting your ideas up and running, because you'll never know until you try.
Yeah, for sure. That willingness to just push yourself a little bit outside your comfort zone and take that first step is huge. Yeah. Because I mean, as you've seen, like things change. So just taking that first step is the hardest part a lot of times. Yeah.
Of course.
Awesome. So it has been amazing to catch up. I'm excited to hear that there's been some great progress. You had these great relationships started and starting into manufacturing, and it seems like there's a lot of good things to come for Spade. So excited that seems like things will be on the ground in India soon. And so for folks that are on the call here, hopefully this gives some good inspiration for you all to be able to get started and take those first steps, get over that initial hurdle to be able to get started with your startup ideas and to be able to get out there and create your relationships of your own to put your ideas into action. So thank you all for joining. We're going to be continuing this in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for those to come, and we'll also be posting these to YouTube to be able to have folks be able to watch them there as well. So thank you all so much.